Against the backdrop of a raging COVID epidemic and a quite visceral Black Lives Matter movement, Abroad While Black was born. Our goal was to highlight Black perspectives from all over the world. It was our way of proving there are other ways to live, other places to be successful, in different cultures that embrace our Blackness. In 2020, the Abroad While Black team created dozens of responsive hot takes and thoughtful interviews covering topics ranging from current events, business opportunities, dating, and life-changing moments. In 2021, our co-hosts Cordy and Sean aim to share more success stories, more productive introspection, and most importantly, how to relocate to a place that truly values what you offer the world. Abroad While Black is more than a show. This is a social experiment hell-bent on discovering new ways to secure the bag and live our best lives. Join the Abroad While Black squad. Hello, Abroad While Black squad. We're back together again. I am your host, Sean Burrows. I am the CEO of Burrows Enterprises. I'm the co-founder of Ingressive for Good. Together, I am passionate about building an economic bridge between Africa and her diaspora. I focus on operations, tech, and investment. So if you've been following me, you'll be seeing that I've been focusing more so on delivering learning modules. This week is no different. This week, what I'm going to be focused on is lean operations. That's going to be the ongoing thing for the entire month. So please, if you're on the newsletter, if you're not subscribed, subscribe. If you're not following us on YouTube, follow the YouTube channel. And please go to www.burrowsenterprises.com to just stay abreast on all of the content that we're creating so you can kind of catch up. Again, I am going out of order, but I'm going through things and attacking different sections of building up your businesses. Again, building that economic bridge between Africa and the diaspora. So a lot of us who are avid readers, I'm sure you've heard of or come across the term lean operations. And if you take it at value, of course, you're going to make certain assumptions. It is kind of self-explanatory in certain ways. Now, when you start building up bigger corporations and all of these multinationals and different things like that with these quite complicated supply chains, things get a little bit different. But for us on the ground floor, you're semi-safe when you're saying like, okay, so if I want to run lean operations, I need to bootstrap my company. Bootstrapping meaning if taking on no additional costs that aren't direly necessary. Looking for ways and processes that increase your efficiency, things like that. It's kind of self-explanatory. So if that's what you're thinking about lean operations, you are thinking in the right direction. So, sorry, you gotta edit that out. If you're looking at that, you're looking in the right direction. So again, over this next month, we are gonna go through lean operations for efficiency and growth. We are going to, this first week, focus on lean operations for the pandemic. So again, it's getting it's getting hard out there. It's getting hot in these streets. So again, I just touched on some of the assumptions that you have. So let's just kind of jump right into it. There are certain core principles of lean operations. You've come across and seen them in your daily life and your daily activities. It's not some type of it's not some foreign thing. It's not this big complicated thing. Again, I always say this: people use $20 words for a $5 problem. So one of the first principles of lean operations in life in general, if you're talking, again, your business, just walking out the street and looking outside, your relationships with the people that you find significant in your life, romantic and otherwise, identify value. That is the first lesson. Identify value. First principle of lean operations. Again, why I say these things are quite common, because how many times have we heard, know your worth, queen, know your worth, king, like know your worth. But take it a step further. Again, you're gonna be quite short-sighted if you only see life through the lens of yourself, whether it be for business or for any other purpose. You have to look at how all of the external moving parts that you encounter, like what does it mean? What value does it create? Do my skill sets, does my business, do any of these things, what I offer knowing your value, does my value intersect with the value that I'm seeing in this outside world in a way that allows me to increase that value, multiply that value in so many infinite number of ways. So again, the first thing you have to do is identify value. From a product or service, you have to look at, like, does this product help a customer do their job? Does it help them make their life easier, more convenient? Does it help them accomplish whatever mission they're trying to go forth with? These are the questions and some of the ways you have to sit back and ask, what value does this have? What value does it create? And again, you have to be quite honest and objective. When you're identifying value, it's not a time to be sentimental unless you're trying to say that the sentiment that your business creates is something that you can monetize. Be very quite straightforward with it. When you identify your value, lean towards the side of caution. If you're assigning a number value of it, just keep in mind that you want to assign a number value that's a bit lower as opposed to the highest possible value you could ever assign to what you're doing. Why is that? Because again, the market changes, and the direct value that you assign to your product or service has a correlating effect to what you assign as far as what your costs are going to be. How much are you going to pay certain people? Again, there's McDonald's and Benihana's. You have a server, somebody that serves you, takes your order and reports it, right? Just by sheer force of the market, Benihana waitress is going to get more money than a customer service counter rep at McDonald's. It's just the way it works. So again, you don't want to be in a situation where you're going to be building financial models, again, salaries, valuations, and different things for that of your company, thinking that you're running a Benihana's or a Papados or, something spicy, something exquisite when you really run a McDonald's. And again, ain't nothing wrong with McDonald's, because McDonald's is bigger than most restaurants that you'll ever come across. But again, the way they went about getting their growth, the way they identified their value, who they were valuable to, who they were going to serve, how they were going to serve them, and how did they, again, build their financial future, their projections, their assumptions were based on, again, a value that they saw based on what it was. Not trying to say that McDonald's, or maybe they started off that way, but I mean, again, they took the Henry Ford approach, like, how do we mass produce these things to make sure they're consistent, they're this and they're that. And I know one of the things was make sure it's affordable. So again, some people's business model is not to be affordable. It's not at all. It's to be expensive, exclusive, and different things like that. And again, understand that if you want to say that you're going to be valuable and you're going to offer value in those spaces, again, you just have to understand your market and all these different things. So again, one of the first things you can do is understand the value that you create. The second thing you want to do is map the value stream. What does map the value stream mean? Map the value stream means understand how value flows through your business and through your product, and how your product flows through the market. And you want to know this. I mean, again, lean operations and this whole thing really speaks to how your company operates. So even with let me take it back a step. So even with going through identifying value, again, there's the product side, the outside, and then there's the internal side. So you also have to identify the value that your employees, the vendors, the people that you're paying, the people that help you provide your product or service. You have to be, again, also same principles apply. Don't be sentimental. Look at your bottom line, look at your numbers, and understand, like, what value does my interaction with this person provide. Like in so many different ways. Again, looking at your employees, like, there's a reason why some people are salaried and some people are hourly employees. There are some people that they're going to be working off the clock around the time. They're going to be available. There's a certain time value they may provide. With some people, it's the output. So if you're looking at if you're in a design space, so for example, you can measure how much value an employee has by okay, how many designs is he pushing out a week? How many customers is he able to serve? How much money does that earn us? Again, going through, and I missed this the first time. The other part is important, but let me just reel this back into where we are. So this is a more internal function. And for the rest of this month, what we're talking about is going to be, again, internal functions, your business, how they work. So that puts this in a different context. So again, your company, the value that it creates comes from inside. It comes from the employees. I mean, there is the product and service, but somebody has to build it. Somebody has to market it. Somebody has to do all these different things. So you kind of have to be able to, it helps you to build strategies around, when you're talking about your benefits, if you have benefits, if you're at that level, again, salary and different things like that. For example, with one of my companies, we had somebody she came in as an intern. I don't want to put her business out there, so I'm not going to mention her name, even though I want to. She's an amazing young woman. But she came in working with an intern. And over time, I was taking her up in salary because she's been working with us for about 2 years or so now. So I've taken her in salary based on industry standards. So it's if you're a person that's 2 years out of college working, and you would be the average, or even the high end of the average would be a certain amount. And that's kind of where I was paying this individual. But then I had to really take a step back at some point and be well, somebody's going to actually realize the value that she was able to create within my organization. And when they do that, it'll never be the same relationship. If somebody goes and offers some of your key people a higher salary, better compensation, or just better conversation, and you don't, it's gonna shift the way they see their value in that organization. And should you respond to that and say okay, somebody else sees your value, so I'm going to increase how much I value in you in my company, it still has a different relationship. It still feels a little bit different. I know that's happened to me several times. Hey, I got a new job offer, man. If y'all want to keep me, you gotta pay me more money. And they'll be oh, wow, well, yeah, we gotta pay this guy. Let's do it. And it's okay, so basically you're not paying me because you see my value. You're just paying me to keep me. You want to do just enough to keep me there. Once you have that seed planted in your team's mind, it's a slow decaying process, and it's hard to recover from. So again, being able to, from a boss level, being able to identify the value of people in your company is instrumental. Understanding the value that processes have, how they're able to empower people, tools and different things like that, how they're able to help things get done efficiently and provide accountability. The value of these type of things need to be considered deeply and intently, and also consistently. It's not something you do once. It's something you revisit as often as makes sense for your company. I think that the quarterly review process is an amazing way of identifying value in your company, looking at what the KPIs are, what the goals, what the objectives are. And again, you don't have to be a Fortune 500. You don't have to be a company. You don't have to be a company with 200 employees to be able to sit down and say all right, let's do quarterly reviews or let's do monthly reviews. No, you should be doing it even if it's just you by yourself. Do a quarterly review on yourself. It's going to force you to understand, again, what creates value in your company, what is supporting that value, and then it's going to hold you true and it's going to hold you accountable to the things that you've mapped out in your mind that says this is what creates value. And that takes us to number 2, map the value stream. Meaning you can take it's an internal process, but you can take it from several points of, not several points of view. I'll take it from 2 points of view, right? So you can look at it from the eye of the product itself. Where is the product or service created? Where is the value that the product provides to the customer? How do we create that? So again, if you're providing pencils from people, you have to understand that, yeah, we need to have carpenters or a wood cutting process or something. You need to produce the lead and all those different things to write with. So like all those different things, who's putting these pencils together? Who's doing the packaging? Who came up with the idea for the packaging? When I look at the packaging and I compare it to everybody else, is this helping these things move off the shelf? There's like all these different things where you have to understand like what role people and things and services and products and tools play in creating your end outcome, which is your product or service. Again, know intently every single step that it involves. Again, you can't find yourselves. I mean, again, I always look at it at this point from investment. But even when I'm saying investment, I'm looking at when you're looking at generating revenue, or attracting advantageous situations, the more you know about your business and how it works, the better. And again, the example I use is when an investor comes in, these are people who have a lot of money and know a lot about your space and probably have made more money than you in the space you're operating in. And they're asking you questions about your business with prior knowledge. You shouldn't be. They can have maybe historical data, access to different things that you may not have access to, which they shouldn't. But maybe they do, but they shouldn't know more. They shouldn't be educating you in certain spaces about the internal workings of your business if you're doing your job correctly. And it just shouldn't happen. So again, ways to avoid this is by mapping out the value stream. It enables lean teams to understand, again, how value flows through the organization. And more importantly, once you know like how value and how different things of importance flow through your company, you are able to identify where things get stuck. Again, if you don't map out the value chain and you have a problem, you kind of do not know where to start. You don't know when you've solved the problem or different things like that, because like you don't know what you're measuring. Again, next week, we're going to be going into the scientific method to kind of point out why all of these things are important from a business context. But again, mapping out your value stream is an important process, again, that helps you identify value and how that value is created. The second one is actually one of my favorite and where I kind of provide the most value, which is create flow. Analyze each step in the process and basically find ways to maximize the efficiencies and reduce the waste. So again, I love just kind of looking at businesses like a puzzle. You look at your own business like a puzzle and see which ways kind of fit together. And when I love to use the term puzzle because it's a quite visual image. And when I say visual image, look at it like you're actually building out a puzzle. You're actually creating a puzzle, right? And you have the picture in your mind, but you have to transpose the picture from your mind to a physical outcome. And you're doing it piece by piece by piece, right? I need to put this part together. I need to have my marketing department. Oh, I need to have my customer service department. Oh, I need to have a good management staff in place to oversee, or I need to have processes that help manage the different departments that I have. You're putting all these different pieces and parts together to make the picture that you had right here in your mind. And sometimes what you're doing when you're looking at it is, even when they're creating a puzzle, it's coming from an existing picture. And, you have to kind of cut the little corners, shave off the sharp edges, and make sure everything fits smoothly. That's exactly what you're doing. So and again, in order to be able to do that, because these things are going in step. So by identifying value, you're creating the picture in your head. And by mapping out the value stream, again, that's another way that kind of adds another layer to the picture, right? And again, it's kind of helping you where you're getting to the point where like, I'm going to put this into real life. And creating the flow is like, yeah, it's kind of breaking that thing into pieces that you understand, where you start kind of being able to position the business itself to run efficiently. Again, a lot of times we know in general how things work. And when you figure out how things work from whatever source that comes from, we typically trust the source more than whatever experience we have. So in the process of creating flow, It is taking what you see and retrofitting it to your business, your specific niche, and what you understand and what you're good at. Again, in identifying the value, especially in yourself, what you're good at, what you're bad at. Creating a flow is going to help you leverage what you are good at and what your team is good at. And again, help you bridge the gap between things that you may not be so good at. And again, these are things that you would learn once you are mapping the value stream. The fourth part, establish pull. So establish pull is, again, another step of analyzing your processes. So creating flow is basically looking at how your business operates, right? Establishing pull is taking another look at how that flow works and saying, like, how do I connect this more to the customer? How do I make sure that the processes that work the best for me, which is where you start. Now, how do I make small changes here and there to make this work better for our customers? So again, perfect example. Let's say that, I'm trying to figure out a perfect example. So let's say you make inflatable tubes that can be used in pools and used in water and aquatic situations, for example, right? So it's one thing to say, like, okay, for me, it works better that let's say they're made out of rubber. It works better for me to locate my business and my store to a place where there's rubber. So it makes it easier to produce. I create the finished product, stores right there. I take it there. But let's say if your rubber tree factory and your store is in the middle of the woods somewhere, if it's in the middle of the woods somewhere, a place that's not convenient for your customer, then you're going to run into a really spicy issue where you may have an amazing process, you may have an amazing team, but nobody can see your product. There's nobody that's going to be looking for you. Nobody that's going to be. So one of the ways you may want to adjust that strategy is, let's say, hey, let's open this same thing up. Let's have our rubber factory there, but it's imperative that we open up a front-facing store, let's say by the beach. A place where people in mass of different socioeconomic statuses come to congregate around an aquatic environment. Let's put our store there. So again, you can do the same process. And because you now have a rubber tree factory that creates the raw materials for your product here, and you have your front selling store there, you're going to have to change your processes again. There's going to be some more extra steps that you have to add in. But again, it's forcing you to position your company in a place where the customer is kind of pulling what they need, what makes sense for them is influencing and dictating how your company operates, how your processes are made, where you produce, how you produce, what type of people you're going to hire. Again, one of the perfect examples I have is when I was working in Washington, D.C. with Cricket Wireless. We were in the middle of what they nicknamed Little Ethiopia. For the life of me, for a competitive company that's selling unlimited cell phone services at some dirt cheap price, it would make sense that just given the socioeconomic understandings that I had, it would make more sense to hire people that could speak to the community that you're in the middle of. So I hired Amharic speaking reps. My sales increased. Now, yeah, it's just a different process. Just, again, doing all the same things, looking at the company I was working for. They had their own operational steps set up. They had infrastructure. They had everything set up. But when it got down to my level, I had to establish pull. By me having one of the only Amharic speaking reps, the Ethiopian customers, especially those who weren't the greatest at English or just wanted to speak to somebody they could identify with, came to my store. So same thing, just a small tweak that established pull, that pulled the customer based on how my processes were set up, based on a key part of my process, who I hire, who I put into positions to sell, attracted customers, pulled customers into my door. So again, you have to look at it from that perspective. And the last one, number 5, there's so many different principles. These are just the 5 that I covered, that I focus on. Seek perfection. Seek perfection. Do not seek to get your company to a place where you can take a break and have a vacation and relax. Seek perfection. Seek a company that's going to be the rest, crush and dominate every element that you find important to yourself and that is found important by the market you operate in. Crush it, kill it consistently. Every day, you should be thinking, this is a conversation my mother and I have every time we talk about business. She runs a huge daycare center in Mississippi. Shout out to Mississippi. Shout out to Jacktown, Jackson, Mississippi, and Jackson State University, Mississippi Gulf Coast. Anyway, that aside, the conversation that we were having was basically that she's very hands-on. She works every single day. She's helping watch the kids. She's helping cook food and do different things like that. And she's so pulled inside every single part of the day-to-day operations that she doesn't have time to fine-tune. She doesn't have time to focus on the small little things that are broken or find different ways to make things more efficient. She's focused on survival from a day-to-day basis. And what I tell people like that find themselves in those situations, identify ways to reclaim your time. This is a part of the seeking perfection. A lot of people tell you what to do. They don't tell you how to do it. Find ways to get more of your time back and to outsource or offload or upskill people so that they can take on some of these repetitive tasks, these tedious tasks, these ongoing tasks that, people other than you can do. Some tool, something other than you can do it, but you choose to do it day after day. Move that off your plate. Move that off your schedule. What you want to do at that point now is focus in on efficiency, problems, issues, obstacles. Focus on perfecting your business. A lot of times people feel like if you're not working hard and killing yourself, you're not doing the right thing. No, you need to be in a good, mental space. You need to be studying, doing market research, going through the internet and seeing what are my competitors doing? What are people who are leaders? If you're not at the tippy top, which the chances are the majority of you are not going to be the best at what we are doing. That's why we're here talking and trying to learn together. So be looking and doing your own internal research to find out what the best people are doing and trying to find out ways that you can incorporate that into your business. You can't do that if you're working hour after hour, day after day, grinding yourself into a nub, into dust, into powder, and then think that someday you're going to be solid when things change, when your environment shifts, when a pandemic comes out of nowhere, you're going to be ready. Right? So those things again, before you can kind of get into understanding how to retrofit your business and adjust your lean operations in this pandemic world, you have to understand what was expected of you in the first place. So after all this long talk and different things like that, one of the major things to understand is that with lean operations, they speak to a point where when you're talking about the internal workings of your company versus the supply chain, internally, it forces you to just continuously look at all the moving parts of your company, understanding which is necessary, which is not necessary, what creates value, what costs me value, what costs me time, what costs me energy and effort. These are how empires of companies are made. These are how those multinationals are built. We're looking at the Facebooks. We're looking at Jeff Bezos is a very good example. In many ways, they try to demonize that man, saying he's cutting corners or he doesn't pay his staff well and different stuff like that. I'm not giving him my check of approval for or against. But again, when you're looking at anybody who has massive wealth, or if you want to be one of those people who has massive wealth, that's how you get there. So even if you find you have benevolent billionaires that you like behind the scenes, or somebody in their staff is still doing the same thing, that's how you get that money. That's how you secure the bag. You stop losing money. That's the first step. Lean operations is a very aggressive approach to don't lose money. Maybe I don't make all the money I could possibly make, but I guarantee you I'm not going to lose money based on mistakes that I'm making, based on mistakes my team is making. That's lean operations. So that doesn't change in the pandemic internally. Externally, what does change when you look at lean operations is that's more of an inventory issue. So from those of you who are importing and exporting, and you're looking at running things lean there. Not being able to bring things in as needed, not having super high levels of inventory on hand and different stuff like that, managing your books in a way that your money is only in places that are active and aggressively earning money. Yeah, we're gonna have to shift back to having a safety net, homie. You're gonna have to build up a little bit more inventory. What's happening right now is that prices in different spaces are fluctuating aggressively. Based on when you're in countries like Nigeria, based on the availability of the USD, based on the buying power of the general community that you have changing, fluctuating. If you look at global habits changing, buyer habits, different things like that, you have to be prepared, deeply rooted to play the long game and play very, very smart. Do a lot of research. You have to do a lot of forecasting and planning. I use words like forecasting, and you think if you're a solopreneur, you can't forecast. You can forecast. You can look at the market, look at people who are doing a similar thing that you are doing, and look at how they're performing in the market and say that, okay, if they're doing this at this level, making a certain assumptions for how much money they're generating, then that means that I'm doing this much and this is how much I'm generating. That's the difference. That's how I can kind of step my game up in that space, right? But when it comes to playing this inventory game, again, you have to look at so many different corners of all the data that you can get, and be consistently tracking and looking at data. So like if we're looking at, let's say you sell alcohol in a couple of different regions or in a couple of different locations, right? You want to be consistently looking at key locations, maybe not every single one, but probably every single one. But you want to be looking and seeing like, okay, are these sales going up? Are these sales going down? What days are my hot days? What days are the slower days? You know, you want to be like really, really pulling your business apart, because what you have to realize now is that the reliability of the supply chain is not as good as it used to be. There are certain things, key elements that you may need to purchase or do different things like that just may randomly not be available. So that means like there are key things that you need to be buying down in bulk, right? You need to be making long-term decisions to ensure that you have all of the key ingredients you need to make that money bag, to make that business work, to make things keep going. You can't now just kind of be like, okay, made a small mistake, let's recover. That small mistake may put you out now for 6 months. So now if you made a bad decision, I'm using the alcohol example. If you made a bad decision with buying the type of bottles you put your alcohol in, now you may have to wait 6 months, 12 months, 3 months to get more bottles. What happens to your sales? Can you continue to sell your product or service? Do you have to shift and put it into another bottle that now shifts people away from being able to recognize what your brand is, different things like that. These are key decisions that you have to be aware of. You have to be way more pragmatic. You have to have a safety net. You have to have more money kind of sitting down in safe places. You have to be more liquid, meaning that like if you take L's or if something doesn't work, you have to be positioned to be able to pivot. Again, like there are certain economies, there are certain regions, different things like that where things are just kind of collapsing and going out of order. Again, when you had the pandemic, where what happened 6 months ago, a year ago, things are still happening today with the pandemic, but what happened 6 months or a year ago will have impacts that we start feeling today. So if you look at all of those meat processing plants that were down in the US for so long, now they're back up, right? But there was a meat shortage. There's a meat shortage based on when they were not down. There's an issue. There's a problem. People started going into their deep freezers and cooking whatever reserves they had up. And now, you know, there's going to be an issue. So again, you have to kind of look at these different things. This scarcity is driving up prices. It's going to shift how much things cost. The thing that cost $5 yesterday, tomorrow is going to be $7 or $8. You have to look at that. You have to either consider like, all right, am I going to remain affordable, or am I going to have to jack up my prices to match the costs that are coming up in my side? You may have to look at your model now. Do I want to be premium, or do I want to shift to a model where I'm selling for volume? Like, these are the decisions that you have to look at. So as far as lean operations for your company go internally, Stick to the principles, stick to the code, stick to the map, do your thing. But when you start looking internally, when you start looking at like how are you bringing certain things in and out, purchasing power, when you're looking at more of the external factors, those are things that you have to play a closer eye on. And those dictate some of the decisions that you're making internally. So with that being said, if you like the lesson that I gave today, please hit that like button, subscribe, follow us. Do the hammer time on that like button. Follow us though, because for real. So we're teaching Black people how to build up their businesses, how to build up their legacy. And I'm starting from the foundational level so we can start building something together, so we can start growing together. Again, look me up. I'm on Burroughs Enterprises on Instagram and Facebook. Serious Black is my personal handle. Look at me also on burroughsenterprises.com. That website will lead you in the right direction and to have you be able to look at some of the other previous content that we have created. So again, we're going to start jumping back into doing more interviews, doing some of these things. We're going to have fun this year. Q2 is upon us and we're going to be stronger and better for it. We survived 2020 part 2. We've entered into it. And let's continue to go through it strong. Thank you.